Hello, and welcome to Tech Talks with Madonna Season 2, Episode 11. Our guest today is Natalia. Natalia is an early childhood education and development professor at the University of Stavanger, Norway, and the Open University, UK. She is also the co-founder and CEO of the university spin-out company, WIKIT, W-I-K-I-T, which integrates science with children's edtech industry. Her work occurs collaboratively across the academic, professional, and industry sectors. In addition, she co-designed an award-winning educational technology that modeled evidence-based education technology for children. She is also a passionate science communicator and advocate for greater equality, diversity, and inclusion across academia and society. How are you doing, Natalia?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm good. How's your day?
The day was quite busy, but a good day. Nice sunny day. What about you?
Mine just started, so yet to see how it goes, but so far so great. I got time to drop my kids to school and then did a little bit of exercise, and I plan to go again later today because I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to keep exercise. It helps me feel better, especially when I'm working from home.
Yes, I bet. Yes.
So, do you mind introducing yourself?
Well, my name is Natalia Kucirkova. I am based in Stavanger in Norway. I work here as professor at the University of Stavanger, but I have a dual affiliation, so I also work at the Open University in the UK. And I guess the reason that we two connected is because of this connection to edtech and educational technologies and how we can make technologies better for a better world. And how we as women can play a bigger part in this space. So I guess I would say that my work in that area has been mostly from the academic side. So looking at how research can make technologies more equitable, more impactful, and more aligned with social justice principles, really.
Wow.
Thank you. You're so kind. Yeah. I mean, don't you feel that there are now more and more opportunities for, especially for tech and women? I feel that it's almost exploding now.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Yeah. So the advocacy is playing. It's paying off.
It is paying off.
Well, and don't you think that that is what we can do as a community? You know, not just opening the door, but really taking women with us through the door. I feel that that's really important because the doors are opening. So now we need people to enter those spaces. So, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, now you are a co-founder and CEO of the university spin-out company. Do you want to talk more about that?
Oh, well, you mean WIKIT, right?
Yes.
WIKIT is a recent endeavor. And it builds on the work that we've been doing with colleagues, really trying to bridge the gap between academia and industry and make sure that we can integrate science with design in a more focused way and more coherent way. And how can we work with edtech more systematically? Because as academics, we do work with many different stakeholders, and that does include tech companies and tech designers and tech developers, but it tends to be a bit fragmented and a bit ad hoc. So WIKIT was based on this idea that collectively, and if we join forces, we can make a difference. So it's a network of researchers who work with different edtech companies to make sure that they are more evidence-based.
Wow. I love that. And actually that will bring us to the next question, which I want to ask you. Can you explain to us like how your research focuses on children's use of technology? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, well, we don't have so much time, but I can try to.
Oh no, you have all the time. No, you have all the time.
I mean, for listeners' benefit, let's try to make this very short. I guess the main thing that I will mention is that I focus on agency, children's voices, essentially, making sure that children are at the center of what we do when we design technologies, and that when we do research, that it is research not done on children, but with children. So in my work, we use participatory research techniques where children act as co-designers, co-researchers. So we train them in different research techniques. We equip them with some of the tools that we use so that they can genuinely and authentically contribute to what we are looking at.
Wow.
And they always bring new insights and new perspectives. So I feel passionate about that, and I feel that it's important that we have children's agency more in foreground when we are designing technologies, especially now that there's coming a lot of bad press about technologies harming children and young people in various areas. You know, as you know, there are issues with privacy, there are issues with mental health.
Yeah.
So we really need to listen to young people more and involve them more in these processes so that they are not positioned as consumers, but actually, you know, co-users, co-designers. I think that's very important.
That is very true. And I think that's a very good point you bring up, because I have two kids and I'm always worried about their use of technology and how that will impact them. I even keep wondering and asking myself, when is the right time for my kid to like have a phone? Do you have any advice on this? Because I'm still wondering when is the good time?
Well, I get asked this question so often, and the second question then is, okay, can you give me a list of apps that you recommend that I can just download on the phone and I can feel safe that those are the best apps because researchers recommend it? The thing is, there is no sort of like one recipe to follow. It does depend very much on the individual child, like their readiness for technology and where they are in their development and what their peers are doing. You know, you don't want them to feel excluded by not having the phone. It also depends on the family dynamics, you know, like how much you as a mother want to know where they are, and you actually need them to have a phone so that you can call them and get some, you know, safety for yourself. And then there are issues around schools requiring children to have access to phones so that they can be looking at various homeworks and things like that. So there are these environmental factors that will influence that, and they are equally important as the maturity level of the child and, you know, their cognitive development and so on. So I would say it's up to you to decide when you feel that it feels right, you know, that you had some conversations with them. You listen to them, what they say, why they think it's needed and why they think that it's important for their lives. And, you know, what you decide is your family rules around how that will be managed. You know, around what different software programs like apps and social media networks they want to join and why, you know. So it's a lot about the content that's on the phone that's going to make a difference rather than just having the phone. You know, if they use it just to call you or to call grandpa, then it's very different than being on Instagram every day. So it really depends on what is it for.
Wow. It is definitely a challenge. And I like the fact that you laid it out that it might vary based on family. And I feel like that's a very good point, because to me, when I give them the phone, it's just going to be for calling grandpa and grandma and mom and dad. And then maybe familiarities. That's it. Because I'm very scared of social media. I don't feel like I'm ready for them to jump into it because there's so much. And there's a lot of loopholes. Like you mentioned, the apps. You don't know if you download them today, they're going to be safe, because each and every app needs an advert. And actually, the reason as to why I even made my first application back in 2014, I made it for my kids so that they can use it without ads, because I couldn't find an application that did not have any ads. Few minutes, something pops up. Few minutes, something pops up. So sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite depressing that, you know, the business model that's followed for apps is based on making money out of children's attention.
Yeah.
That's really not right, and it's been addressed, but not enough.
Hmm.
There are some regulations out there that are targeting that specifically. In US, you've got COPPA. In the UK, we
Hmm.
have the Children's Code or Age Appropriate Code. There's, of course, GDPR in Europe, and so there are some legal frameworks that developers need to
Hmm.
follow or adhere to,
Yeah.
but they're still not stringent enough.
Hmm.
And they are very basic, like don't mishandle or don't misuse the data. But these days, we've got a lot of issues with algorithmic fairness, cybersecurity, data responsibility, and those things are still not addressed in social media and many, many children's apps. So I feel you when you say that as a mother, you are not sure and I
Hmm.
would rather avoid it. So I feel that it's important for people like us to be also proactive in that space and try to
Yeah.
change it, you know,
Yeah.
because we're not going to remove it, you know. Like,
Hmm.
it's important to address it in a constructive manner. I feel, like how can we redesign
Yeah.
them and how can we transform them into something that is tech for good.
That is true. I feel like what you said is very true because I don't think removing is even the solution because we've seen when we say remove the way that works, it never works. So it's just trying to reframe it to fit like kids'
Mm.
needs. Wow.
Mm.
Now wow, that's such great content. Thank you very much for sharing with us. And I wanted to ask you a second question, which is I feel like this is the third or fourth question so far. But I wanted to ask you, what inspired you to get into tech?
Oh, I want to know what inspired you as well. So I hope that you'll share that too. Um, I guess for me, it started, you mean in the professional sense, right? Like when did
Yes.
I actively include it in my professional career?
Yeah.
It was a bit, it wasn't planned because it was during my PhD studies where I was doing research on children's personalized books, so books that children can design themselves. And we essentially used paper and pencils, and children could glue different images on paper, and they could put in some glitter and all that. And it was very nice, but it wasn't scalable. And that was at the time when iPads came in as something revolutionary. Many people were saying how important the technology is going to be for children, touch screens. So we explored the option of having personalized books made and shared digitally. And that is where I began to be interested in apps and creation and creativity with technologies, and became more interested in edtech.
Wow. Oh, when you mentioned that, I was also looking at your Wikipedia site, which I find to be pretty amazing.
Well, I don't know whether it's accurate. These things you don't have control of. So,
No, but it's out there. And I was like, wow, wow, wow.
does it
Just,
mention Our Story? Because that's the app that was part of this process that I was describing. So,
mhm,
Our Story was the app that colleagues and I developed at the Open University to
mhm.
allow children to make their own stories. And it's still up and running, but I think there are better apps out there these days. We
Mhm.
didn't really have the money to make it into a super sleek, shiny app. So,
Mhm.
but it's free and it's definitely without any adverts. So,
Perfect. Perfect. So you didn't say you wanted me to mention how I got interested into tech. So to
mm,
me, actually, my journey wasn't tech. I wanted to be like an aeronautical engineer because I really
oh,
loved the planes. Yeah.
mm,
And my dream did pan out. So for some reason, I started loving computers because when I got my first computer, actually, I didn't even get my first computer. When I saw a computer, I was so intrigued. Like, how is this thing working? Like, you can do all these things in this thing. How is it working? And I wanted
mm,
to understand how it did. And then I learned because there's computer engineering, there's computer science. And I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting. And
mm,
then And that's how I wanted to getting into tech. And then how I got into mobile, because I work as a mobile engineer, is that I got a phone, and it was so interesting that I was like, wow, everything is so surprising me, like how it works, you know? So to me, it's that curiosity of how's this thing working that made me want to be where I am right now, like in tech. Because I was like, oh, now at least I know how it's done. So now I'm good.
I love that. I really like that curiosity angle to it. And you know, that makes you a very good researcher as well, because if you think about it, it's this thirst after knowledge, you know, like how do things work and how can I find out and can I take it apart and then pull it together again, you know, to find out.
And
So,
yeah, that's the interesting part, because I actually wanted to go to academia too. But my husband is the one that did it. He did a PhD in math. And I'm like, okay, maybe I can do, because like when I got kids, I was like, oh my God, it's so hard right now. I can't do it. But definitely, we moms sacrifice a lot, because I think doing a PhD and having kids, it's not easy. But I said, maybe later I can go back to school, because I love education a lot. I love being out there and doing research. I wanted, in fact, to do genetics. That also is something that really, it's really intriguing to me. Like, how does this thing actually work? Like, what is it? I want to understand it more.
You like hard problems, right? It's funny. But you know, I think the latest statistics show that it's not actually at PhD that working moms are most disadvantaged, but it's right after. Because when you finish PhD, you sort of need to find a job immediately because the funding stops, and very often PhDs are either not funded or not funded very generously. So you already have a gap financially. So then you sort of need to find a postdoc job quite quickly. And there are very few postdoc positions. So that's an issue that we actually talk about that in the book, which I think I recommended to you. It's called Inspirational Women in Academia. And in that book, we interviewed some inspirational women who work in academia and who faced different types of discrimination. So gender, ethnicity, disability, working class background. And we looked at the challenges that they have been through. And what I guess was quite, I can't say shocking because I was aware of that, but what was almost depressing was to hear the same pattern across different personal stories, right? In terms of discrimination. So it's really something that we need to look at collectively at system level.
And thank you for sharing. And again, it's such an honor to have you here today, just speaking to us and sharing your knowledge. And
I'm very pleased that I can. You know, I think it's important for us to talk about these things openly if we can.
That is true. I wanted to ask you another question. As a professor, I'm wondering, and so according to the International Journal of STEM Education, comparing success of female students to their male counterparts in STEM field, an empirical analysis from enrollment until graduation using longitudinal register data, results find that female are less likely to enroll in STEM related fields, while students with higher high school mathematics grades are more likely to enroll in STEM. Female students have lower first-year dropout rates at University of Applied Sciences STEM program with respect to study access. And we find that the conditional on enrollment in STEM, women are less likely to graduate than men within the normal duration or the nominal duration plus one additional year. According also to another research by Kimberly A. Schaum, University of California, Davis, women are more likely than men to transition into a non-STEM major, whereas dropping out of college is more common among men than women. And I'm wondering, are you seeing any change? Have you looked into that kind of research, or what information do you have there, or what can you say? Like, what can you tell us?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would need to look up the latest stats on this, and they would vary based on geographical location.
That's
and
true.
Remember, we are still extremely privileged if you think about women from countries of war conflict, women of countries where they cannot participate in any academic career because of religious reasons. I mean, even in countries that are lower income, there are still possibilities, whereas in those countries there are no possibilities. So on that sort of ladder of possibilities, we are still very privileged. But I know that when it comes to female leadership in technology, it's not only in academia, but also in the technology side from the business sector, that the statistics are not looking good. And it's mostly at the mid-managerial roles that it stops for women, like to get into the leadership role and maintain it without burnout and without stepping down in the middle of your position. That is a challenge. And I don't know whether that's specific to tech or whether it's specific to female leading positions. I mean, look at Jacinda and other female politicians who have been very successful for a while and then needed to step down because of the pressure.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. And wow, it's pretty tough. But I think we can say that at least things are getting better. And
that's true.
I mean, I'm happy when I see, for instance, I'm just going to say this again, and I'm just going to encourage you again. Please submit a talk to Anita B. You can international, local, you can speak from anywhere, and it will be such an honor to come to listen to your talk, because I feel like you would do such a great job of sharing that.
You're so kind. I should look that up.
Please, you can here to pause and actually share the link, because I want
Are you going to talk?
No, I'm not. I did apply to talk, but different track. But I feel like you can do a very good talk in like public interest tech. I feel like that's a very good. I mean, I know I'm making this one up for you, but I hope.
But I hope that you do something as well, right? Let's do the sisterly thing that I go if you go.
No, yeah. Well, I'm going to be there already because I'm a co-chair. I'm going to be there. So if you're there, we can definitely also meet in person,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I love that we can be talking across the ocean. But it's also nice to meet people three-dimensionally if we can.
Yeah, I like that. So again, no pressure. I'm going to encourage you to apply because I would love to see your talk.
Thank you for the encouragement.
Yeah, it was so much great having you today.
And maybe I'll meet you at that Anita thing.
Yes. Thank you very much again. And it's such